So you look at my elbow, and we look at each other's elbows. Ready, go.
Okay.
We'll do it again. Oh my gosh. Come on. That's the trick. We look at the elbow, and then we never miss. See? Look at that. We can do this like 10 times. Go faster. Okay. So now don't look at my elbow.
Okay.
Oh, still good. Anyway, the point was that's what happens when I do this. I like miss my whole, All right. Okay. Welcome to Sister Friends. I'm Angie Gray here with my amazing friend,
Rashonda Young.
and together we're diving into what's at the heart of it all, relationships.
From finances and family to the ups and downs of life partnerships, and even those relationships we have with ourselves, we're here to talk about the real stuff.
We're not shying away from the hard conversations, we're leaning into them because we believe that when we start talking, we start understanding.
And when we understand, we grow in empathy, compassion, and connection.
So grab a seat,
Grab a friend, and let's
get into it. Hey everyone, I'm
Hello.
Angie Gray.
And I'm Rashonda Young.
And we are Sister Friends. Okay. So, hi. We have just spent some time with you guys the last couple episodes, and the first episode that we did a couple weeks ago, that episode was with Rashonda at Hippocrates. Is it what?
Hippocrates Health Institute.
Health Institute, and it's in South Palm Beach.
West Palm Beach.
West Palm Beach, Florida. And so we kind of we did that one, and we talked to Rashonda about her experience there, and it was a cool trip she got to take, and an important trip.
Yep.
And then we followed up with a friend that she met there, Lorraine Canada, who you guys saw this week, actually, as we were recording. And that was also I thought it was a great episode. I learned after listening back to it, and I thought it was great. She has a great story. It's all been around prevention education, paying attention to our bodies as our bodies and our minds give us these clues a lot, and sometimes for a long period of time until sometimes finally our body will listen. Or we get sick.
Right.
Like Lorraine shared her story. And anyway, those were really, really powerful episodes. And we're on this kind of, what do I want to call it? What do you call it? Oh boy, this is what happens. I haven't had this happen for a minute. It's a series. It's a series.
Oh,
okay. A series. Yes,
Sorry.
a series of topics. See what? You can't stay with me. You
I
can't
know,
get
right?
inside this?
I wasn't inside of there.
Anywho, so it's a series of we found ourselves in a series specifically talking about prevention, wellness, and being at Hippocrates. So we thought we better back it up a little bit, and maybe we can, because we're going to do 2 more episodes with another guest that Rashonda met while she was at Hippocrates with another incredible story.
Yeah.
We're going to have her on, and then Rashonda will sort of really let you into her life experience as of recently. And that's how we'll wrap up that series of sort of, I don't know what we're calling it, Hippocrates series. But so let's back up.
And I think maybe not Hippocrates series because I don't want to focus so much.
Yeah, good.
Even though I thought Hippocrates was great.
Yes.
I really think it's really around health prevention.
Yeah.
And just self-care.
Yeah. Yeah, that's good. That's why we wanted to be clear, I think, just because it did seem like it was about this Hippocrates and like you said, an incredible place, and there's other places like it, but it really wasn't about that. So let's just back up. And do you want to just share a little bit about, and as much as you want, as you're comfortable sharing, why you went to Hippocrates, what was going on in your life before then, and then because it kind of just happened really fast. So we're going to let you in on a little bit about what we were experiencing and certainly what you were experiencing before. You just got back this last Saturday, and you were there for almost 6 weeks, right?
I was there for 34 days.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. I wasn't initially supposed to be there for 34 days, but thankfully God allowed me to have an extra week that I did not think I was going to have, and I missed all the cold weather, which was great.
Yeah, you really did.
I did. Yeah. And so I'm still going to be a little guarded with what I say because there are some really close family members and friends who don't know. And I would not want this to be the way that people find out like all of the details.
Yeah.
But
hold on, I'm going to fix your hair. There it is. Okay. There. You need to make sure you do that for me.
Yeah.
Okay. All right, go.
Okay. So in November, right before Thanksgiving, I had gotten a health alarm.
Yeah.
And with that, and you know, with me, like in everything, it's about prayer.
Yeah.
Not wanting to make decisions, big or small, even without praying and seeing what God's will is.
Yeah.
And so, as you know, after getting the diagnosis, you know, my thing was, okay, God, how do you want to heal me? Because I think sometimes we can get so wrapped up into like fear and what everybody else is thinking for us to do and wanting for us to do. And because when you get a diagnosis of something, especially if it's something serious, I think a lot of times it's like you don't even hear. You know, you stop hearing. You stop really like comprehending what's going on around you. It's just this thing of like, am I going to live? Am I going to die? Am I going to suffer? Like all these things that'll start to go through your head, and you make decisions based on fear and emotion. And for me, it's just like, okay, God, one, you have not given me a spirit of fear. And so that is something that I never wanted to walk in through this journey. And I also just wanted to know, like, am I following his will? Because we can go outside of his will, and I think we still may be fine, but at times, but the journey is going to be a lot harder when we don't go within his will.
I have a question about that.
Yeah.
I mean, there might be assumptions that, because I even think this could be different for different people, but when you talk about God's will, that's like, that could be a pretty broad thing.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So when you think of God's will, what does that mean for you?
Yeah.
Like so you said you ask a lot of questions, you know, you're going to ask for the big things, the small things. So what does that look like for you, if that's okay to ask?
Yeah, sure. So, and I'll say, you know, in this, it was, God, how do you want to heal me? And being silent and being still and not being afraid of the silence and the stillness. Because sometimes we can say, God, how you want to heal me? And then we start Googling. And then we start like trying to figure it all out ourselves. And there is a time and place to try and figure some stuff out. For me, that time and place came after getting answers from him. So praying, being still, and listening. And what I found was that I was getting awakenings, and this was Thanksgiving week, between 2 and 5 a.m. And a lot of times when we are awakened, 2 to 5, or whatever time it is that a person may wake up, we will take that as like it is a physical thing where, my body's just saying, like, I need to be up for the bathroom. And you might need to use the bathroom. But our body has a mechanism that allows us to be able to sleep through that. And there may be something more that's waking you up. It could be that during that time, you might just need to be praying. It could be during that time that God just wants to speak to you when everything and everybody around you is still. And so during those times, I just been asking a lot of questions. And between 2 and 5 a.m. during that Thanksgiving week in particular, but even times beyond that, he'd wake me up with the answers to the questions that I was asking. And that then is what would send me into searching and researching and looking at peer-reviewed papers and just seeing like, okay, this is what you gave me. now I want to understand the why of
Yeah.
what you gave me. Because I don't think that there's any
Versus doing a why, trying to figure it out on your own, Googling it, and then saying, well, what do you think about this?
right.
For your experience, it's the other way around.
It was the
Yeah.
other way around.
Mm-hmm.
And so, and I think then I do need to then understand the why after he gives me his answer,
Yeah.
because I don't think that there's anything in our lives that we go through and it's just for us. You know, there
Yes.
are things that we go through, they're big, they're small, things that we may not, even think are worth speaking of, but they're experiences. And somewhere down the road, there may be somebody else who needs what it is that you learned from that experience. And doing the research then kind of gave me, not kind of, it fully gave me information and background of the why to what he was waking me up and giving me.
And confidence,
Mm-hmm.
to listen.
To listen
Right.
and to follow what he says, like.
So that's it. So that's the answer, I think, is that I'm hearing you say is that what is God's will for you means,
Mm-hmm.
first of all, your process and in your relationship with God, it is
Mm-hmm.
always an ask.
Mm-hmm.
And then to understand God's will for you means to listen, to hear it,
Yeah.
to trust that that's what I'm hearing,
Right.
to go with that, to trust
Yes.
it, and then go and see why, because that's there too.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So did I get that?
You summed it up perfectly.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So that was good.
Yeah. So, with getting that, and I mean, you have been there with me along the journey, the appointments and all the things. So appreciative of that. And so, as you know, I just went back and forth with like, do I do this or do I do that? Or, there was a point of understanding worthiness. Now I talk about identity a lot, like who are you? What is your true identity? And one of the sweatshirts that I have says worthy, but I had to figure that out for myself, and understand that, yes, Hippocrates for 34 days may not be everybody's journey. But for whatever reason, God is allowing that. And for me to press back because I'm saying, well, but not everybody can do that.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like, but that's also not their journey. Like, we're all here on our own journey.
I want you to dive into that piece for just a second.
Okay.
And I'll just share. So after finding this out, I was at the movies when I talked to you and you shared with me, and then it was like, okay, and then going to your first doctor's appointment, and then we started talking about how you had, and I don't know if you had met Gigi yet. Maybe we'll be able to talk about her in another time, but we started talking about so back to full circle a little ways back here where you said our stories, the experiences that we have, our lived experiences, the challenging ones and the joy-filled ones I've said the same thing. We've talked about this many, many years, believing and experiencing that my stories are never for me alone.
Right.
So how cool it was for me to be on this journey with you and to have my story then and my experience then able to share that with you through talking about Julie, through talking about Saint Aviv, and then you'd heard about Hippocrates from another friend. And so the stories that I got to share, the stories that Gigi got to share, things like this that were already happening for you. What a blessing for me. What a blessing for Gigi and those that have shared with you. That also I wanted to share that you did go back and forth. And I think that part of the journey is really beautiful. As you're sharing it, I'm relating a lot to that quiet time where it sucks and you're trying to embrace it. And it's all the things, like it's all the things, because you did go back and forth. You weren't going to go share a little bit, explain a little bit more about the things you shared with me where it was like, you thought you heard God say one thing.
Yeah.
And then, so you're leaning into that the whole time, though you're open to maybe you didn't hear it quite right, you know?
Yeah.
So can you share that a little bit?
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Okay.
And that, I think that part was where I was allowing myself to really get more so into my head.
But that's the struggle I want you to
That
talk
is
about, because
that
that's
is
the
the
real struggle,
struggle.
man.
That is the struggle. And I do feel like, I mean, I did hear like, yeah, no, everybody is not going to be able to take that time
And the
and the
money.
money to go
Yeah.
to Hippocrates
Right.
or Saint Aviv
Right.
or whatever else. But that doesn't mean that you don't have purpose there.
Well, okay. I'm sorry to keep
Like,
interrupting you, because this part for you was you felt a responsibility to what you're learning. Can't we just do that here?
yes,
Because not everybody is as fortunate as I am. And I want to show people how you can find these modalities, you can find healing,
yes,
and you have choices here.
yes.
Okay, sorry, I just wanted to clarify
So that's
that. Yeah.
perfect.
Okay.
And then just like the going back and forth with it, like there was more, like we have a lot here,
Yeah.
especially with the functional medicine center now here.
Yep, Dr. Hunter, Megan.
Yep. And I think there are such great things that they're offering. And even connecting and staying connected with Dr. Hunter while I was at Hippocrates and sharing some of the things that I was learning, I think that was really great. And even purchasing a couple of the energy healing modalities and bringing them home
Oh
with
yeah,
me.
because I haven't even asked you about that yet.
Yeah.
And on that note, you actually did go to Dr. Hunter's center,
Yeah.
functional medicine center here that's brand new.
Yes.
Can you tell us about that? You went to that first?
And yeah,
that was
I
your
went there
course of
first.
action?
And so I had gotten the news on November 20th, and November 25th, I was there doing ozone therapy. And from ozone therapy, then we increased to doing high dose of IV vitamin C. And so I was just very consistently doing that each week. Twice a week, I would go there. And I did that up until the point of leaving and going to Hippocrates. And at Hippocrates, there were some of the same things. Instead of the ozone therapy, they actually did hyperbaric chamber. And so that's the oxygen chamber under pressure.
Yeah, I should
for
probably
people who
clarify
don't
some
know.
of these. Yes, definitely clarify what some of those things are.
Yeah, and then the IV vitamin C was another part of the Hippocrates program. So continued to do that while I was there. And some people will ask about like, can't you just take like orally a bunch of vitamin C? And it's like, it doesn't actually do the same thing. You actually, like, if it's more than what your body's using, you're just going to urinate it out and it's not getting into your bloodstream.
And also you had clarity on what things were going to be good for your diagnosis. Some things, right? So you had some direction, and Dr. Hunter helped you through.
Dr. Hunter was amazing.
All of that. You did a bunch of blood work.
Yes.
You did all the things. And a lot of times she was doing these treatments, these modalities before, and then you'd come straight here.
Yes. Yeah.
And finding time in your day, that's a whole thing maybe we can touch on too. But
yeah.
Okay, so processes you hear between right before Thanksgiving, yeah.
Yep.
And then you start seeing Dr. Hunter using and taking advantage of the modalities that they have there, which are great. You were feeling great.
I was feeling great.
You were feeling amazing.
Yeah.
During that time, I mean, you had a lot going on.
I did.
Can we talk about that too? Just life-wise, like where you're at with all the projects and all that stuff. Can you talk a little bit about that and how those adjustments in mind, like the way you're thinking had to shift?
Yeah. So, I mean, as you know, working on starting a bank, which is not a small feat, and then working on a big redevelopment project and not a small feat.
Nope.
Especially, and both of them are brand new things.
Yeah.
It's not like, oh, you've done all this stuff before. It's like, no, these are new. And so the learning that goes with all of that. And then I don't feel like I was carrying a lot of stress with them, but in the back of your mind, you are still thinking like, these are really expensive projects. Like they're not like,
like it goes somewhere.
Yeah.
It takes up space in your brain. It takes up some
whether
space
it's
there. Taken a ton of time at this level and where you're at in those projects.
Yeah.
They're fairly new, but still you'd been,
I've been working on
yeah,
them, but
yeah,
but I just never been through the
yeah,
whole cycle process of doing either one.
yeah,
So it's been a lot of learning.
yeah. And a lot
Um,
of people counting on you.
Lots of people counting on me.
Yeah,
Yes. So there's been all of that was going on, in addition to all the boards that I sit on, and just a lot of commitments with all of those.
yeah,
And so just trying to juggle, and then of course work. Gosh, you got to have something that makes money and pays the
yeah.
bills.
Mm-hmm.
And so still working, and it was a lot.
Yeah,
And to really trust God, as I still remember the day of the testing, and I'm in the doctor's office, and the song "I Trust in God" just kept flowing through my head. And I think that was really important for this journey of
yeah,
trusting in God.
yeah,
Um, yeah, just the song, the words, "I trust in God, my Savior, the one who will never fail." And so that just continuously goes through my mind, and He never has failed me, and I don't believe He ever will, because that's just who He is. So,
yeah,
um, so just trusting that, you know what, you walk away to take care of you and to learn what it is that He has to teach you during this time. um, I needed to trust Him that these projects and everything was going to be fine, because I disconnected. I'm like, yep,
yeah.
I
You
have,
did pretty quickly.
oh yeah,
You knew that you needed. I mean, just the time alone that it
everything's
would take.
changed.
Yeah, everything just changed pretty
Things
quickly.
started to change before I went to
Okay, talk
Hippocrates.
about that. Yeah.
They did. I mean, there were a lot of things that started to change. Boundaries.
Yes.
Um,
After the
After the
diagnosis.
diagnosis, boundaries that are being set up, the word no
Mm-hmm.
not being a bad word.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I don't have the capacity for that,
Mm-hmm.
is a phrase that I think kind of softens the no sometimes. But truly, I don't have the capacity for a lot of things.
Yeah.
And things that I thought in the past that I did have capacity for,
Yeah.
I really didn't have capacity for them.
Yes. That's what I meant. Like these were, and even how you talked about it just a second ago, and I wanted to stop you there because you're like, oh, you weren't taking much time, but they were like that space that it takes up in
Yeah,
your brain. It's just like I visualize it like kind of like a shelf with like cubicles, and
right.
in each your every single cubicle was chock full. You could also think
Yes,
of it like a waffle for some reason,
right.
and every little square had butter in it. Just yeah,
Everything.
let's delete that part, Sonny. Anyway, yeah, you were just full. Like
I
you
was
were
full.
full.
Yeah.
And then you had to be like, and I wonder right now in this moment, as you're talking about that,
Hmm.
what also kind of weirdly a relief. I wonder. I don't know if that's true, but like you're carrying this shit around for a long time. Okay.
Right.
Now we're going to get to maybe the part that with this moment that we just had in the kitchen a little bit ago,
Yeah.
but this is sort of leading to that. Like, and we all can relate to this. So thank you for being
Hmm.
so vulnerable in your story.
Yeah.
But in all the different ways and similar ways, as women in particular, and men, okay, but just we get it. Like we're doing it all
Yeah.
the time, all the
Yeah.
time. It was easy for you to just negate the fact that that was already happening. Like you were really, really, really full, and then you had to make that decision to be done. And did that feel like, oh, like that was your first no? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like that was your first, oh, check that off the list. Can't do that. And oh, how did that feel?
It felt really
Even though it
good.
came along with
Yeah.
other
Yeah.
things that weren't so great, but
Right.
that
It
part.
felt really good.
Hmm.
It felt freeing in a lot of ways. And I hope for our audience, anyone who listens to this, that you don't need to get a diagnosis
Yes.
to feel that freedom of being able to say no,
Yes.
and to feel like it is okay to care for yourself.
Yeah.
Like, I hope that other people don't need to get a really bad health diagnosis for that to happen.
Yeah.
Um, and understanding like the importance of total self care and
we can bring this back to you talking about, and we talked about this in almost all of our episodes. We touch on this about we are being given, our bodies are so miraculously, fearfully, and wonderfully made that we are constantly being given these nudges to do just that.
Right.
And because we are worthy of experiencing health. And it's just such a precious gift. And all too often, we don't recognize what a gift it is until we have a diagnosis or we have something happen that, the ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure thing really is so, so true.
It is so true.
But that it is a priority. Self-care has to become a priority. And it's weird because I think you and I spend a lot of time in this space in life because it's been a big part of our work that we've done. It's still surprising to me. I mean, I actually live with someone that it's still surprising to me that whatever reason it is that's deep within us, that we don't do the things that we know. I'm guilty too, so I'm not. I'm not blaming. Well, no, I'm talking about Todd, but I'm not blaming him. I'm just saying it's surely easy to see that big fat plank in his eye. But like we all know the things that we can be doing.
Yeah.
But everything, the chaos in the world, the first thing we do in the morning is we look at our phone and look at the emails, and we just get busy like right away, and which is why it's been life-changing for me to do, to meditate, among some other things. But just self-care being so important to do now so that you can enjoy the abundance in life.
Right.
To learn and to seek out and ask the places where you can say no to. And on that note, looking back at some of the things that you immediately had to or chose to say no to, do you recognize them now? Maybe not. Like, I have no idea what the answer will be, but as things that were not bringing you joy, however, you just kept doing it because it was an expectation you had on yourself or others or.
Yes.
Okay.
Absolutely. So things that maybe once did bring me joy, but with all of the things that I'm carrying, I needed to let some things go. And so knowing that, but feeling obligations to other people, I was sacrificing myself.
Yeah.
And that's just not a wise thing to do.
This is making me remember
it's
this.
not selfish.
No.
It's like, it's not
exactly.
selfish. And I think that's the thing that sometimes we can start to think is, am I being selfish?
Yeah.
And it's like, no, I'm really not. Because if I don't set the boundaries and if I don't pull back from certain things, then I may not be here to do anything with or for anyone.
Yes.
And so, you just have to make some different choices.
Yeah. And you would think that we would be good at that, really good at that. I don't want to digress, but I do want to say this and then help me remember. I wanted to talk about the retreat thing that Todd and I did for one another and aligning our relationship to our values. Hold that thought because it's going to talk about you. Okay.
Okay.
Oh, now I've already forgotten what the other thing was. Oh my gosh. This is why, so that you take care of your brain, you take care of yourself. What is it that I was just going to say? We're coming. Let me do this one first. Let's skip to the marriage thing. Okay. And then hopefully I'll remember the other thing. So Todd and I had this marriage retreat thing that we came up for ourselves. And, I may have shared that already in another podcast. It all runs together. But it was an amazing experience. And, a big part of what the suggested things to do were to write out our values. What are my values? What are his values? And then we share those values, and then we come up with our combined list of values. And then, and then we talk about, are the actions that we're taking, are the things that we're committed to in our life, are our priorities aligning with those values? And it was so revealing. And then we were able to create a plan. Then we were able to look at our schedules, look at the things that we had been prioritizing before and go, what things can we say no to?
Yes.
And it has been life-changing. Now, that has been 2 months ago. we need to recheck in, and we're going to be checking in because now I can see those old neural pathways of doing things for so long that weren't aligned with our values. It's
Yeah.
easy to jump right back in there. But as I'm thinking about that, I'm thinking about, okay, yes, you got this diagnosis, and, like you said, God will use it for your own highest and well-being, but
Yeah.
also for other people. But
hmm
when you look back prior to diagnosis and these choices and priorities, do you see differently now? Were they possibly not maybe aligned with your values? Because we're talking about self-care here. You know
Yes.
what I mean?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's not that the things that I was doing were not good things,
Right.
but um, by not saying no or backing out from some things, I was sacrificing sleep,
Yeah.
so you just stay up a little longer, you push a little harder.
Yeah.
And we know how important sleep is.
Yeah.
Um, Literally, there were times where I have almost tipped over in my chair because I'm falling asleep at my at my desk. And I mean, ended up at the chiropractor's office, like threw my neck out and my back out,
Yeah.
like craziness.
Yeah.
It's like, just go to bed.
Yeah.
Just say no to some things, because you can't do all the things. You
Yeah.
can't.
Yeah.
Um, it seems like you can because things are
Mhm.
getting done,
Yeah.
but you really can't because you're hurting yourself.
Yeah.
And
And I like how you said that, and that's a good, really good point, is it wasn't that the things that you were prioritizing, the things that you were doing were not good things.
Mhm.
This is the crux of the whole deal, right? Because
is.
in comparison, like to our marriage and Todd and I talking about those things, we would list out the things, that we were doing, whatever, and they were important things.
Yeah.
And they almost always, this is interesting. Almost always in this time of life, it's more, I think Todd would agree with me. I have absolutely been here. But in this time, it was more Todd's being in balance with work. And so I think it's the
Mhm.
work stuff that because it's good, because I have to do this for work, because I have to do this. I have to. And it's hard being the partner too, because you appreciate, you see the hard work, you respect the hard work, um, all those things. But those good things, you got to check them, because if it's
do.
at the expense of the relationship that you have with your health or
Mhm.
your partner or
Yeah.
whatever it might be, checking back and making sure that those align with your values is so important.
It is
I've
so
learned
important.
that it
I was
is. Yeah.
actually just on a call with another friend who I also do some business coaching with, and
Mm.
so it was more of a friend call, but it was just talking about aligning values.
Yeah.
Like, you've got your business, you got your husband, you have your kids, you have your relationship with God. How do you have those prioritized?
Yes.
Because what's most important should be what is given priority and time.
Yes.
And so, just as we talked about that, it's like, okay, well, if God is important, God's first.
Yes.
And then if you're married, your marriage is second.
Yeah.
And if you have children, your children come after that. And then your work comes.
Mm-hmm.
But oftentimes we have that so not in that order.
And life happens.
Life happens.
So people do have to be like
You-
shuffled around
you
priority wise, sometimes.
Sometimes
But you got to come back
you've
to.
got to
Yeah.
come back to where do my values lie? Because
Yeah.
if you stay in that space for too long, things start to fall apart.
So here we go. Full circle back to, coming back to the self-care part. That is what happens
Yeah.
in our health. And man, I've definitely experienced it. You've experienced it, experiencing it now. But now things are aligned and it's beautiful. And
Mhm.
I so appreciate you being vulnerable and talking about it, because we've all been there, as far as letting the lies, really, let's use the word illusion, maybe is a better,
Yeah.
the illusion that these other things are so much more important. And it's that resistance
Mhm.
that causes the stress inside of us.
Yeah.
And we know that stress is the number one cause of degenerative disease. We've talked about that. We talked about that in the last episode. And also keeping in alignment with relationship it's this, and so our health is our relationship we have with our
Yeah.
health, and in our people relationships, the same thing is when we get away from those values, we start to feel this resistance, things start to break down, and then you start to be petty, and it just, like you just said, it sort of starts to crumble.
Right.
The other thing about being able to come back to your values, first of all, knowing what they are,
Knowing what they are.
and then coming back to them, but specifically with our health being one of them. When we can come back, when we are clear on what our values are, it also helps, to your point earlier, about how we plan it then. So with this retreat, we get our values in alignment, we decide what they are for our marriage, get clear on that. And then we look at our daily routines and we start talking about, okay, so if fun and friendship are a value to us, what are we doing to support that value?
Yes.
Does that mean we just don't ever go on a date, or that we don't ever make a special evening where we're just playing cards or whatever that might be?
Yeah.
And we just go weeks and weeks and weeks and weeks because we'll get to it? Or do we put it on the calendar because we all know that if it doesn't plan, it's just not happening?
Right.
Same thing with our health, right?
Yeah.
And those have probably very much changed for you.
Yeah.
I know we're going to go into this a little bit deeper about how things have changed and will be changing now for
Right.
you as you've come home from the Hippocrates experience. In wrapping this up, because I know and I want to go on and on and on, I think what we got to talk about before is a great way to end this podcast.
Okay.
And before, Rashawn and I were sitting at the table and we were just talking. Oh my gosh. We were just talking about her experiences and the things that she's thought about, prayed about, where she's at now, like projects, moving forward with some of the things that we've been talking about, just a lot of things. And, sharing all the stuff that she's been sharing with you all. We got to talk about that beforehand. And I said to her, because it just sort of came to me that as I'm looking at her and looking at your face, which I can't look at right now because I'll cry, but looking at her face, people who know Rashonda will say there's such a peace about her. She's very soft. She's very soft and she's very easy to be around. And you feel peaceful when you're around her. And the honest truth is that I told her is prior to this diagnosis, and I think it started before when we started doing our podcast together, because although we're so close, I say close, I think it was an intuitive understanding more than it was a closeness, if that makes sense to anyone. I know it makes sense to you.
Yeah.
I knew she was my sister friend for years.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Life and the stuff kept us from prioritizing us. And that was okay. That was always okay for that time being. But as we started to get together for this sort of dream come true, manifest, we started to have more opportunity to talk like we're talking now, and we're learning all these things about each other. And then we laugh our asses off about, oh my God, what? Go back and listen to those episodes. I probably need to. But the realization that hit me earlier today was, and that I shared was, you were this peaceful person, and you are, but there was, I explained it like if there would be a veil that was there before, it is not there anymore. And I said, I see you.
Yeah.
And I just said, thank you. I see you. And that's literally like what it has been to watch her go through this transition. Has been a total honor, but it's so awesome. I mean, I'm grateful because it is like before there was all this stuff that she's been sharing with you, with me about how life was prior and how life is now. There was it was a heaviness, although she was so peaceful, it was a heaviness that she personally carried. And this isn't going to make sense to anybody probably, but I shared this glass sometimes I get these images, and it was like she was carrying around this very, very full glass of water, big glass of water. And wherever she went, you had to carry this glass of water, but you had to be very careful that it wasn't going to spill out. And and that represents actually to me more of feelings. Like you're spent. You're give.
Yes.
Give.
Yes.
And dude, with me or anyone for that matter, I'm not even calling myself special there. It couldn't go any further than here. This is the depth that it could be
Right.
in the relationship, because there was no more to give, and it's going to, all that's going to just spill, and you're going to have nothing.
Right.
I hope that analogy sort of, or that image makes sense. But anyway, the point of the story was really grateful for that moment that I got to share with you to say, and this is the truth, that welcome, like
thank you.
I see you. I'm so glad.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. Yeah.
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 She's
It's a good analogy.
amazing.
You're amazing.
Thanks. Great episode. So much fun. God is good. Life is good. You all are wonderful, and you all are worthy of abundance and health. And we're going to talk more about this for our series on self-care and understanding our self-worth, our worth, and our value.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, all right. Well, thank you very much for being here with us. Tell other people about this wonderful episode that we shared about Rashonda. Invite them to subscribe and listen the next few. And of course, in the future, we hope to continue to bring you information and lift you all up. It's all about relationships. So I'm Angie Gray.
And I'm Rashonda Young.
And we are Sister Friends.
Thanks for tuning in to Sister Friends. We hope these conversations help you see things from a new angle, feel a little more connected, and maybe even laugh along the way.
Remember, whether it's family, work, or those elephants in the room we all deal with, everything really is about relationships.
If you enjoyed this episode, let us know. Share your thoughts, share this podcast with a friend, and let's keep building those connections.
Until next time, stay connected, stay curious, and let's keep growing together.